Well, as we get ready to enter year 30 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, we've never found another like that guy. Never have, Jimmy. We never have. I mean, it's complimentary to you, but it's not great for the franchise. You know what I mean? If you got another Jimmy Smith laying around, could you send him down to Jacksonville? We could really use one, and hopefully this young rookie will have be like that. But we'll see. How are you, my friend? Jimmy Smith joining us on the show.
I'm doing great, Dan. Thanks for having me on the drill.
Yeah, it's always good to catch up with you. I trust all is well with you and the fam up there, and things are going well. What? Let's talk about. I don't know how much you know about Brian Thomas Jr. We'll talk about him first. I want to relive some of the glory days, but let's talk about Brian Thomas Jr. first and what your thoughts are about this young man. I don't know how much you know of him. He's out of LSU. He's a Jaguars first pick. We're trying to get Trevor some targets here, some guys. And what are your thoughts about this big receiver, big kid?
Yeah, from the highlights that I've seen so far, he looks good. Seems like him and Trevor are getting some timing. I saw a post corner he ran the other day, and it timed up pretty good. I like his ability, and I like his potential. He has a high ceiling, so it's one of those things. Let's wait and see what happens when the real bullets fly. Yeah,
what are the tough parts about? Again, your story is so unique, but take me back to the early years and as far as what he will go through in making the transition from playing college ball to playing in the NFL.
Yeah, he's gonna see that guys move around a lot faster. Way faster. And he's gonna have to be able to process things a lot quicker. And that'll come over a period of time, but that's one of the transitions that he's going to have to make from going to college to pro. Pick up the blitz. Blocking is something that you don't hear about as far as receivers, but a big target like that, he should have the ability to block. Those are two things that stick out to me.
Talking with our friend Jimmy Smith. Jimmy, I've told this story a couple times, but I don't know if you remember this. But do you remember playing in the Mark Brunell charity softball game years ago? It was, all you guys came out and played. And anyway, the reason why I bring it up, it was because you were at first base and somebody hit like a single. And you just opened it up, and I was kind of emceeing it on the field, but so I was kind of close to you, but it wasn't with pads or anything, but I just sat there in amazement and remembering, I was like, my God, how fast is this guy? And I mean, you're fast, but when you see it like that, and you're not in pads, and you just. And you just whipped around the bases. I was like, holy smokes, because you just mentioned fast. Well, you had the fast. I can give other examples, of course. When Freddie went 90 yards, you decided to kind of skip along and catch up to him and run with him against the Dolphins.
Yeah, I hated Brock Marion. Brock Marion was an ex-Cowboy. I didn't like him, so he wasn't going to touch my guy.
That's right. So you boogied down there and caught up with Freddie and made sure he got in. But that speed is something you can't teach. But, I mean, it's just you're hoping that, some of these guys – We didn't have a lot of deep balls last year. There's an art to catching the deep ball. You and Mark certainly had that. Tell me about that.
Yeah, and a lot depends on the offense also.
Good point.
Yeah, if they're calling those balls a lot, what I see in the offense today is a lot of deep overs and crossing routes, and that's due to the personnel that the Jaguars have. Do they have a true deep threat? I think that Thomas could be a deep threat. He showed it at LSU, and having the time to get the ball downfield. A couple of times Trevor got hit last year, and didn't have the time. But I think with Kirk and Thomas and Gabe Davis, those are some legitimate receivers that can hopefully get deep. And getting deep is just about positioning. I was a fast guy,
right?
But it was about leverage and stacking the guy. And stacking is when you can get even with a defensive back and step over in front of them. And I was pretty good at using my leverage and my size.
They say if Jimmy's even, he's leaving. Okay, that's what they used to say. Jimmy, Evan Engram caught 114 passes last year, but a lot of short stuff. How and again, you talk about the offense and the game plan, and he was great. I'm not knocking him, but I'm wondering, and I've seen him kind of talk about this. I mean, he's a tough matchup because he's not the 260-pound tight end. He can move.
Yeah.
I would think we would be able to get him down the seam some. I would hope we could incorporate some of that into the offense this year. That could provide some of those big plays that you're always searching for, huh?
Yeah, last year I was watching him. He was catching a lot of balls.
Yeah,
he was 2 from my record.
That's right.
And a lot of it was those extended handoffs. The tight end is always the closest receiver to the quarterback. So one thing that I want, and I mentioned this to Evan, is if he can get his stance down, his torso down, instead of standing straight up at the line of scrimmage, he would be able to get down that seam a lot quicker and faster. A lot of it is your release off of the offensive off of the line of scrimmage. If he could get his stance down, you will see him get down the middle of the field a lot quicker and faster.
Yeah, Jimmy. I'll remind folks. The franchise 116 catches in 1999. Oh, what a wonderful year! 116 catches, 1,636 yards for the man they call Jay Smooth.
And we ran the ball first.
Oh yeah. And by the way, he followed that up with 91, 112 after that. 1,000 yards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years in a row. Jimmy Smith, 67 career touchdowns. I suspect that people, when they talk to you about when you played with the Jags, I mean, is it the Baltimore game that they bring up, or do they bring up the Broncos playoff game? What do they bring up most when a Jaguar fan comes up to Jimmy Smith and talks to him about the glory days?
I hear about the Baltimore game in 2000, mainly because they came out with this documentary on how great the Baltimore defense has been, and as I was sitting there watching that documentary, I was like, I wonder if they're gonna skip over that performance. And surely they did.
Yeah. 291 receiving yards in September of 2000. 3 touchdowns. It was a game to remember, and it was certainly a great game to be at and a fun game as well. The Denver game I bring up just because the game winner, the cincher, and in all the documentaries, and we lived it. So, but I remember Mark always saying, "Well, I looked over and they were pressing Jimmy," and I always thought, if you're pressing Jimmy, game over, right? You talked about leverage and being even. Well, if they're coming up on you, I know he's going, and that was a monumental play. That one in that crazy Brunel scramble that he had in that game was such a great moments and such a great time for the Jaguars and their fan base.
Yeah, it was a great time to be a Jaguar, wasn't it, Dan? We were all young then. I look at the highlights.
Oh, we were young, Jimmy.
Yeah, and to go up there to Denver, man, and pull that off was unbelievable, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Yeah. As we look ahead, tell me your impressions of Trevor Lawrence, what you've seen now from him. He got the big contract. We all think he's a franchise quarterback. We all think that, when you ask yourself, can you win a Super Bowl with this guy? I think the answer is yes. with Trevor. But there's also, hey, he had injuries last year and that slowed him down. But we still need more. We need more from our young gunslinger.
You're right. It's good he got the contract, but you know what? He's got to live up to it now. There's no more excuses. I saw the article yesterday where Shad Khan was putting the coaching staff on notice. So everything's in place, and I listened to you last year. It was just so disappointing, and to lose those last 5-6 games like that.
Awful.
I mean, it's the worst ever. So. Everybody's on notice, and I'm looking for Trevor to come out on fire this year, and hopefully get us there. We did good as far as building a defensive line, and I just hope everybody, we got Morris at center, and I just hope those few pieces that we got at free agents and the draft picks can develop, and we can put together a good ball club because in our division. I tell you,
we all see
there's
Houston.
Nobody taking a back seat yet. I mean, Houston and I'm afraid of Tennessee. I'm afraid of Tennessee also. India is not far behind.
Nope. And it'll be interesting to see how the young Gator, Anthony Richardson, plays. He's got to stay on the field. That's one thing, man. That young man has had problems with getting banged up, and hopefully he can have an injury-free year and we can still beat him. I will say this. What did you think? I'm sure you heard of it recently. The house that Jimmy and Tony and Freddie and Mark and Tom built, our old stadium. She's going to get a redo. A remake, and it's going to be a big, beautiful, brand new, state-of-the-art NFL deal right here in Jacksonville. Keeps the Jaguars right here where they belong for the next 30, Jimmy. So, what were your thoughts when you heard about that, and the fact that that stadium that used to run around in is going to change a little bit here in the next few years, which is obviously great news.
It's great news, and I think it's time. I think keeping up with the rest of the NFL, everybody's building new stadiums. With the exception of Kansas City, I hadn't heard anything about them. But that's crazy right there.
Yeah.
But it's good to, I was happy to see the new facilities, a year ago.
Yeah.
And to get this new stadium bid, man, it's going to be awesome. And, hopefully it'll be a thing to see in Jacksonville.
Hey, Jimmy, who was your favorite when you played? Who was your favorite play caller? Who did you? What was there one guy that would? I like him because I know you receivers. He called your number more than anybody else or something, right? I mean, and Keenan was more. Keenan was more, from what I gathered. Keenan was more infamous for always going back to the huddle and saying, "Mark, I'm open."
Yeah, yeah. Keenan drove Mark crazy. I mean, he drove Mark so crazy it didn't allow the other receivers any time to get in there and talk about whether they were open or not. So we were, we just, what we learned as far as playing with Keenan is what I learned is, I'll just wait until the game comes to me. And that was kind of my mentality every game.
Yes.
Because, we practice all week. We got a game plan. And, my good friend Keenan, that ain't working. Let's change it. You can't change the game plan. Just ride with it. But to answer your question, I would have to say Chris Palmer.
Okay.
Or Chris Palmer was a good one. Chris Palmer, or who's a guy? Who was a coordinator in '99?
Was Gilbride then, or I don't know?
Gilbride was our first coordinator. I would have to say he would probably be third.
Petrino.
Petrino would probably
Bobby
be
Petrino. Yeah.
He wasn't a good player favorite because he didn't have he couldn't figure out how to have a relationship with the players. Chris Palmer had a better relationship with the players.
I could see that.
I would have to say Petrino was probably, with help with Coughlin, would probably be the best coordinator for us.
Yeah. So Yeah, Coughlin, of course, also called plays. You remember, and so
He did.
And
yeah.
listen. I know for you guys, you just hear the play and you got to go out and do it. But I mean, and listen, they did it. You did it extremely well for a lot of years, and
Thank you.
And still the best receiver in Jags history, which I say is good and bad. You know, it's good for you, but not so good for the franchise. And I'm sure you'd be happy to hand over that mantle to somebody else if somebody would come along. So, but you're always remembered fondly around these parts, and it's always great to catch up with you, man. We appreciate the time and wish you nothing but the best going forward, Jay Smooth.
Well, I really appreciate it, Dan. Thanks for having me on, buddy.
Yes, sir. Good catching up with you. That's Jimmy Smith.